come in, please put your name in the chat so we can keep track for attendance, and please share an emoji on how you're feeling today. We're so excited that you guys are taking some time out of your evening to learn more about CPTP and the Teacher Mentoring Network, so we can't wait to get started. So while we allow people to filter in, we're going to go ahead and share some of our highlights from this past year.
We need to really push education. We need to give other students what we never got ourselves. And I feel like if a lot of educators start doing that, whether it's males or females, we are going to push our tomorrow to a better place.
Some of the long-term benefits for our students who have gone through CPTP program, they have a whole cadre of educators to kind of walk the journey with them to become credentialed teachers. So these students do not have to do it alone. They do not have to go through that whole process alone. There are a lot of educators who believe in the mission of CPTP and want to be a part of the support system for these students.
Growing up, I had one male teacher in the 8th grade, and he had the biggest impact out of all my teachers. And he's one of the main reasons why I wanted to become a teacher. And I want to be that special inspiration or that role model.
Our mentor network will be a place, a space where they can stay connected to the community of educators that they meet during this time and other educators. Some of those people are teachers, some of those people might be administrators, some of those people might be retired teachers. So it gives them access to a whole community that thinks that them coming into the profession of teaching is really important.
For me, it was being able to work with a mentor teacher to really help you build your skills, to help you feel more get more comfortable into the actual teaching profession. I thought that was a very great thing I liked about the program.
It's not just about the student success, it's about the community's work. And that's what this grant and that's what this program is all about. It's about how do the teachers and the students who are here today become the leaders that make their communities healthier and more prosperous. And we're really excited about that.
Many school districts are all collaborating in this project to build a mentor-teacher network, as well as a group of students who we ultimately hope to place back into the classrooms in the communities in which they grew up in.
To us, it's really that community development frame. It's about getting to know you, having relationships, and making sure that we're helping you and that you're helping us make a difference.
right, well, once again, welcome everyone. My name's Nicole. I am the CPTP Program Associate, and we just want to take a minute to ground everyone and let you all know that we understand that the work that we're doing is not the only answer, but what our work has shown us is that teachers of color are important, and what students need based on the communities that they come from are important. So that's why this pipeline matters so much to us. And while you're here, we want to, of course, make sure that we are identifying you correctly. So please feel free to share your pronouns in the chat. If you hear us misrepresent you, feel free to call us out and let us know what you prefer. That way we can make sure that we're respecting our audience. And then most importantly, we do want to acknowledge the land that we are currently on. We want to pay respects to our elders and the elders of the past, and we understand that we are gathered on Indigenous land, and we want to make sure that we identify the Tongva, the Gabrielino, the Chumash, and the Keats people. And I ask that you also join us in acknowledging them and any others that you're free to share in the chat. We understand that the organizations represented in this gathering are also acknowledged by being founded upon exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous people, including those whose land this and our local and national institutions are located on. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. So once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to pass it to the rest of my team.
Thanks, Nicole. So my name is Yvonne Tran, and I am the program manager for CPTP. So I see some familiar names. I see some CPTP students, mentors, but for those of you who are new to our program, our mission is, and it's an initiative to build a community-based teacher pipeline that strengthens the teaching profession by increasing the number of teachers of color. We're funded by the federal government grant, the SEED project, to develop, to support effective educators development. So this project is a partnership among Rio Hondo, El Camino College, and Cerritos College, and the Center for Collaborative Education to serve 300 community college students who are exploring teaching as a career path. So some of the components of our program include a multi-layered mentoring and an enhanced advising program where students are matched with a mentor. Students of all majors may explore teaching at all levels with particular focus on STEM, special ed, and early childhood education. There's the Teacher Mentor Network, which you're all here to learn about today, which elevates students and teacher mentors' experiences. It also incorporates an emphasis on equity and social justice, and is a research project. So we really hope to learn from our participants to be able to spread the learnings to other campuses, colleges, and hopefully move this work forward. This work, it wouldn't be possible without our teams and partnerships that we have with each other. So we are the CCE staff who are leading this work, as well as our partners, El Camino College. These are just some of the staff members involved, Rio Hondo, and then Cerritos. And so just a little bit about the Teacher Mentoring Network. And so this network was established to provide a sense of belonging, kinship, community among all of our participants and maybe future participants, as well as the community itself. It's really for anyone who's interested in education. So all of you here today, the space is, full of teachers who are longtime veteran teachers, as well as novice teachers, as well as those just wanting to explore teaching, prospective teachers. So all are welcome. And so we have all these different levels. There's as well as all these different events and workshops and opportunities that come through TMN, which all of my colleagues will share a little bit more today. Since this project has been established, we've been able to have a few teacher mentor network events, spaces that really allow us to build that sense of belonging and kinship among all of our participants. And so some of the event offerings that we have include equity hours, UDL, and special ed discussion hours, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory events, connection hours. We have some really great upcoming book discussions, panels, keynote speakers, And, judging by a lot of the data that's already, initial data that's come in, a lot of our participants feel a sense of community and exploration and growth in their teaching by attending these events. These are just some of the things that our participants have talked about when they're thinking about the teacher mentor network, how it's, they're able to make a connection with a lot of the speakers who talk about their experiences as teachers of color. They also talk a lot about, it makes it more possible for them to think about becoming a teacher if they're bilingual. There's also this strong connection to the new generation of incoming teachers. So overall, there's been a lot of really great responses, and we really hope that you're all able to join it after this session, after you learn a little bit more about TMN and our offerings. And so with that, I'm going to pass it off to Suzanne.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the part of the Teacher Mentor Network that I hold, and it is the Equity Hours. I'm going to take you on a little tour of some of the sessions that I've held for us. So next slide. Some people ask, like, why is the focus of CPTP on teachers of color? Next slide. Well, the data shows that there's disparity in the number of students who are students of color compared to the number of teachers who are teachers of color. And so we hold equity hours, the initiative CPTP focuses on teachers of color because we want to help solve that when we see that the community colleges is a place for us to do some of that work and allowing people to explore. So the Teacher Mentor Network is a place where we gather and we look at data like this, and we see that these on the top talks about the faculty at the schools, the Cal States, the University of California, and the community colleges. And then we look at the data around our student population, and we see that there's disparity and that there are larger numbers of white faculty, yet larger numbers of students who are students of color. Next slide. And so now I'm going to just kind of walk you through some of our sessions. And our first session that we did last year was on segregation and the different ways that segregation works. What's the difference between inclusion and assimilation compared to segregation, and the different ways that that manifests through integration or exclusion? Next slide. Like I said, I'm going to take you on a tour, so there's no one place that we're going to spend much time. I have a lot of slides for us. So we studied the work of Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade, who is a professor at San Francisco State. And we watched some videos, which you'll be receiving this afterwards. And that's why we wanted to know attendance-wise, because we'll send this out. And we studied some of the work that Jeff Duncan Andrade does, and you'll have this video because that's a video link. Next slide. And Jeff Duncan Andrade, on the next slide, has talks about these things. He talks about unequal definitions of success, and he talks about his vision for public schools and how it's sometimes we tell people that they should, become a teacher so that they can then, and they think that that means moving outside of their communities, outside of, if we live in a place where there's poverty, to go out of that community shows that we're successful. And he counters that and says, actually, one, we're not trying to leave those communities, we're trying to stay in those communities, and we're trying to change those communities. Next slide, we're good. So this next one is another video, Jeff Duncan Andrade, and he talks about how he sees all of the inequity that we see. It's by design, and he considers that to be that the game of schooling and education is rigged. Next slide. You'll have those videos, so that's why these are all here. In that video, he talks a lot about meritocracy, which means that we all have the same opportunities to reach success. We all have the same opportunities at that. And he challenges that and says, actually, no, maybe not. Maybe we don't, because if we did, we would also have the same outcomes as well. But because of systemic things, that's not actually accurate. And he talks a lot about that. Next slide. He talks about learning about the communities where we're teaching. So we talk a lot in schools about cultural responsiveness, which is to understand the cultures of our students. But he also says we need to know about the communities where we're teaching. So not only being culturally responsive, but also being community responsive. Next slide. And again, you'll have all of these links. And then he also shares about what is it that we have to offer, and particularly to students of colors, and how do 4 years navigate that, and how important that all is. Next slide. Our next series, we talk about microaggressions. Next slide. We talked about the different types of microaggressions. And so first of all, what are they? and the just daily ongoing both insults, demeaning messages, and indignities that come to people of color and people who are minoritized, not only people of color, but also women in certain contexts. People talk about ableism and ageism, but what are microaggressions? Just what are they? Next slide. Then we talked about the different types of microaggressions. There's micro assaults, micro insults, and micro invalidations. Next slide. We talked about the differences of those. So you'll see I have there for you some graphics that talk about what micro assaults are, what micro insults are, and what micro invalidations are. Next slide. Then we studied gender identity and expression, and we did that through the looking at this this graphic of what's called the genderbread person. Next slide. And we compared the genderbread person there's this document that has changed over time. And so we looked at what were the changes in this document. It talks a lot about gender identity, gender expression, different biological, anatomical. And so here you can see we talk about what are the differences in the different versions of this document over time. And we learned from that. Next slide. And then, okay, so as that's changed, what do we need? We need vocabulary. Next slide. We talk about what does it take to make welcoming schools, vocabulary, and it takes understanding. So these are all like definitions of the different terms that we need to understand in order to understand gender identity and orientation. Next slide. And then we talked about what we need to be prepared for as educators in our classrooms. We can't just sort of, oh, I'll deal with that when we get to it. No, we talked about how we need to be prepared for the things that come, that we know are coming ahead of time. Next slide. And then we talked about critical consciousness, developing critical consciousness, and in our next series. And critical consciousness is not criticism. So we talked about the differences between critical thinking and criticism. Critical thinking does not mean that we're trying to be critical or criticize, like to find fault. Rather, critical thinking is actually, it's a process. It's an intellectual process when we're looking and responding to new ideas and ideas that we've already thought about in the past, how to like think through them with like an analysis. And it requires more rigor, more interrogation of the topic and approaching it, both things that are new and familiar with a sense of skepticism. Next slide. So again, the personal development of critical consciousness, we always spend time thinking about ourselves, not just like looking into like, what can I do for my students? How can I change something out there? But actually, how do I need to change? What do I need to do? So it talks about me building my capacity, you as an educator, building your own capacity and commitment to the social political realities, changing your analysis and perception of the inequalities around you. And then what do we do to bring collective action? Next slide. So critical consciousness, again, this just kind of is a graphic to show you we start with our own awareness, we move into our motivation, and then we move into action. And as educators, there's lots of actions that we do, both through our literal physical actions as well as the way we plan, the way we set up our room, the ways we work with our students. So next slide. So developing critical consciousness is so important. And here again, it's theory about it, things that we change, the language that we use. We teach the language of inequality. We study the language of inequality. We reflect on things till we build a sense of efficacy. And then we educate the students as well as ourselves about how to take collective action. Next slide. And then we studied this document, the 10 commitments for equity literate educators, and you'll be receiving this document. And it just shows us the 10 commitments that we make in order to really be thinking deeply and strategically through this with our critical consciousness that we have developed. And we have an upcoming series with an educator at UC Riverside. Her name is Dr. Rita Coleman, and she has written a book. We're going to be studying her book. It's about teachers of color, and she uses a lot of counter narratives. And we want all of you to know that you're welcome to be with us at that series. It's a 5-part series, and she will be reading to us on the first series, and on the 5th series, she'll be doing a panel discussion with a mentor and a student from CPTP. So we hope that you all will come. And this is a message from Dr. Rita Coleman here.
Hello, CPTP students, mentors, and education community members. I am Dr. Rita Coleman. I am an associate professor at the Graduate School of Education at UC Riverside, and I am pleased to be here with all of you and excited to know that you will be reading my book and hearing the voices and counter narratives of fellow students, teachers, and educators. I hope that you can participate in as many of the 5 sessions as possible, and I look forward to seeing all of you at the final session when I join you in person for a conversation and question and answer on the 27th of April.
Turn it over to my colleague, Ruth.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I'm not sure you had an opportunity to actually tell us who you are. So if you wanted to just take a few seconds to do that.
Thanks for reminding me. I am Suzanne Edwards-Acton. I am the Director of Equity Initiatives for CPTP. Thanks, Ruth, for reminding me.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And thank you for sharing all that great information. My name is Ruth Ellis, and I am the Director of Special Education and Student Support Services for the CPTP program and the Teacher Mentoring Network. And I'm just going to go through some highlights of what we do in special education and student support. I'm sure you saw that little picture there in my first slide. It says special education teachers, what do they really do? And so what I try to do during the discussion hours is start to answer some of those questions as for all of you that are exploring teaching, not just special education, because as we know, there are more inclusive schools now. And so we want to be mindful of inclusivity and equity along with how we support special education teachers. So next slide, please. So we started off our discussion hours, as you can see in the spring. We did a series on universal design for learning, which talks about, like we said, how we learn how to accommodate and work with all students in our classroom, whether we're special educators or general education teachers. We've had a special speakers series on getting to know special education. We've talked about the community supports within special education and how there's an interplay there. And in spring of 2022, we had just recently, we had a special speaker panel in teaching of special education, amazing panel. And we had a very world-renowned special guest, Dr. Wendy Morosky, speak on co-teaching. And we have a few other sessions coming up that you'll find out about later. So next slide, please. So why is this important? Well, this is very important because, as you know, not only are we in a significant teacher shortage, but also the shortage in special education is even more dire. And approximately 14% of students receive special education services. And that doesn't necessarily mean whether it's in a special ed classroom. It could be in a general ed classroom. It could be in a preschool classroom. So we do have a need for that. Early childhood education teacher quote, many times the early childhood education teacher in the preschool setting is when a family may learn about a possible concern with their child. So those of you that might be interested in early childhood ed, that's important. Understanding special ed is a great resource for you to have to understand how special education interacts with early childhood. And finally, as a community lens, teachers really see that it is hard to see parents go through this because they begin to withdraw and become isolated. And so as you get a better understanding of the need, you become an incredible support system through your knowledge and your connections with other teachers for inclusivity and equity across the board. And as you can see, the referrals for special education, you have parents, teachers, other school officials, and physicians. And so we know that it's it's broad-based population that we work with. Next slide. So what does that all mean? When we talked about, like I said, one of the first ones that we first sessions that we did was universal design for learning, and learning about how each teacher can provide support for all students' unique needs. And those graphics there, you'll understand the difference between universal or the interplay of universal design for learning and academic systems. We're going to take a brief look at a highlight video. So if we could run that video.
Thank you, Darnina. What I enjoyed about the video was that for me, it really showed that all the students stayed in the classroom versus having a pullout. And I think that a lot of schools are moving more towards push-ins, not separating students from their peers, because that's the best way that they learn.
I liked seeing that there were kids with more assistance needed. Like there was a little guy that probably was hearing impaired. So you're going to have kids in your room that are going to have different levels of needs. Some of them are going to have one-on-ones with them, and some of them aren't. But yeah, I like that it was in a general setting, because that's pretty much what your room looks like.
And in the early child development, we use the ASQs, ages and stages, which is, this tool help us to catch any delay even from early age. And we do one for social emotional, one for cognitive development. And really we have the children mainstreams like special needs children and general ed children in one classroom.
So that was just a little highlight reel of some of the things that we discussed during the Universal Design for Learning series. Let's go to the next slide. And now, in just a moment, we're going to take a look at some highlights from our amazing special guest speakers. Many of these speakers are from schools that we've worked with, parents, universities, professors, and even some of our CPTP participants. So we're really excited to engage the community and our participants in our discussion hours. So let's take a look at those at that highlight reel.
My teaching experience is much different than many people's because the majority of my work has been done in county jails throughout California and New York. But I think the story is still the same. I mean, the work is still the same, shall I say. So like I said, I'm a social worker, I'm an educator, and I'm a mom of 3 kiddos. The oldest of my kiddos is 7, and he does have Down syndrome and autism. But my journey towards education, and special education in particular, started far before I even dreamt of getting married or having children. So just in life, as a social worker in county jails, my core values, the things that that matter the most to me, is that people are seen, heard, and valued and validated.
And I went to work at Green Design, and I feel like I got really lucky because the things that I didn't have at Eastern were strong leadership, and I didn't have a staff that supported me as a new teacher. And I think those 2 things are so important to being able to take care of new teachers, is to have the support from veteran teachers who are around you, and also the support from your principal and assistant principal. And so I got really lucky at Green Design. We have a really strong principal, and the staff are amazing, and it just made working there amazing. I enjoyed it. I still love it to this day.
For me, the impact has been profound and lasting. So I had, in the years that I got to know teaching, I was also getting to know kids, and getting to know kids at a very personal level by working with their families, hearing about the stories that they had to share and the struggles that they were going through. And that really gave me a completely, just a really heart-centered approach to education.
It's become more research and finding out more and what else can we do. And I think as each student, each child, again, I'm not a teacher, but I see how the information that I have sometimes, or the information or knowledge that I've gained, I can share it with the teachers.
What are you excited about for co-teaching? The reason I'm passionate about it as both a general education teacher and special education teacher is our classes right now, whether you are a kindergarten teacher, a high school physics teacher, anywhere in between, they're diverse and they are increasingly inclusive. And we're not just talking about students with disabilities. We're talking about our students who are English learners, students on 504 plans, students who are gifted, students with behavioral issues, students who are suicidal, students who are homeless, students who are hungry, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And that changes every day. So the idea that I would have another partner in my classroom with me to figure out what's going on with my students and how can we do a better job making them successful, I would love that. And when I say successful, I'm not just talking about academic success, that's certainly part of it, but we're also talking about students who need help with behavior, with social skills, with making friendships. There's so many things that we're supposed to be doing as teachers, and it's hard when we're supposed to do it all. And we're supposed to have all these different perspectives, and we're doing it with 30 or 40 students in our room sometimes. So I think the importance of co-teaching is that we're taking people with different perspectives, different areas of expertise, and we're saying, let's collaborate. Let's model what we want our kids to do when they go out in the real world, to say, I don't know everything, but I know that other people do. Someone else out there has the answer that I don't have. And I'm willing to ask that question. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to seek out support and help. And if we can model that for students and we can do it ourselves and not think that teachers have to have all the answers, it reduces our stress and it reduces theirs. And I think right now we all need less stress in our lives.
Thank you for taking the time to watch that. We're going to just go quickly through the last two slides. So that's one of the major parts of our series is our speakers. We also share resources. And finally, we also do a few moments of wellness, because as we know, wellness is important to everyone. As Wendy said there, we want to reduce all the stress, as much stress as we can. I'm going to turn it over now to Yvonne.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Ribas. I'm Project Director for the program Community Partnership for Teacher Pipeline. Thank you to Suzanne and Ruth for sharing the TMN programming around equity and special education. In this segment, we will provide a synopsis of our STEM workshops facilitated by Dr. Brandon Rodriguez. Next slide, please. Here is Dr. Brandon Rodriguez in the photo. He is a charismatic scientist educator who is, always tell us that he is a chemist by trade, but he is an educator employed by NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. He works for the Educator Professional Development Specialist strand of the work. He has worked at JPL in the K through 12 education department, developing lessons for students and leading professional development trainings for educators since 2016. We're very grateful to have him collaborate with us on these STEM workshops. There are a few themes that kind of float around in these workshops. We're trying to promote student engagement in the exciting and ever-changing world of STEM, in STEM learning and teaching. And one thing that Brandon does is that he gives out JPL swags for active participation at the sessions. So that's for sure, it's an enticement, it's an incentive for our participants to come to his sessions. He has also provided a 2-day event of best practices for 21st century project-based learning in STEM. We and our participants engaged in project-based learning activity of building, testing, in redesigning a model of a Mars lander. We worked in groups and discussed how we could improve our models. We also learned that STEM actually connects to all subject matters, grade levels, and ways of teaching. Last semester, Brandon provided a STEM series of 2 sessions when he discussed climate change, and he explained why teachers must present scientific data when teaching this topic. He also showed us how to learn science using phenomena, which is a fact or situation that is observed to exist. Here, we have linked a couple of follow-up activity sheets that you can check out when you receive this deck as a follow-up email. Please feel free to look through them and use them as needed. Earlier this semester, Brandon had a session called Coding for Everyone. He showed us how to use Scratch, a free coding program that anyone can learn to use to create interactive projects. It was super fun. We worked in groups and we shared our projects. Next slide, please. Here, we want to show you a sample of our STEM sessions in the video that's coming up in the next slide. Please pay special attention to these few points that are listed on this slide. The NASA education team is quote unquote bilingual in terms of teaching STEM. Pay attention in the video what that means, what does that look like, and see if you could locate a fun fact about landing on Mars. Also pay attention to a best practice that Dr. Brandon Rodriguez talked about. Do activity first and lecture second. Another thing to pay attention to, how he says to use metaphors to demystify STEM concepts. And I'm giving you a little clue there. Coding is like ... See if you can pay attention and find out what he said about that. And lastly, pay special attention to him giving us a tip about inserting tactile playtime into STEM learning. And there will be a brief reflection after the video for you all to share what you've learned from the video. So Yvonne, please play the video. Thank you so much.
We really just try to, put together a package for teachers. And we have found success in this because even though we are tiny, we're only a 5-person team, we are all ex-scientists, ex-teachers. So I'm a chemist by trade, and I still teach actually high school chemistry and physics. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that. But we also have an elementary school teacher, a middle school teacher who has taught things like and has degrees in math and earth science and so forth. So, we're really, I think the pride that we feel comes from the ability to be bilingual, if you will. We know the science, we're there at JPL absorbing the most cutting edge science, and then we're able to kind of translate that into the lessons of 4 walls. Think about how crazy this is, right? And let's not forget that Mars, because of how far it is, light can't travel fast enough. We're not doing this in real time. This is all coded, right? You write literally hundreds of thousands of lines of code and just hope it got there, right? And then it says, I lived, and everyone cheers wildly, right? So it's been a really wild evolution to see all of this landing. In the slides, we don't need to watch a third one, but I did include the most recent landing as well, so you can see the difference in resolution in photos. It's really incredible. But you can kind of see where I'm going with this, which is I want to have students design a process to land safely on Mars. And that's what I'm going to kind of challenge you guys to do with me today. Super excited because you guys modeled exactly the learning process for your students, right? Wouldn't you be excited if they did what you guys just did today? If you gave them something absolutely brand new with no big background. I didn't lecture you. I didn't tell you about mafic versus felsic. I didn't walk through the evolution of rocks. You guys just had some marshmallows and some toothpicks, not even, found some candy, found some donuts, and said, I can do this. I can get there. And I love that. I really think if you guys can, hopefully as future teachers, do the activity first and the lecture second, that knowledge will be more concrete because kids will find the connection that is meaningful to them, and then you will feed the content afterwards, right? Then we would talk about rock structure. Then we would talk about iron content and stuff like that. So I want to show you guys a little bit about the code, just so you can see it. The real code that we use for the Mars rover is, I kind of tell students, it's like the way your parents give you chores when they leave the house. When my parents left the house, they would say, when I get home, I want your beds made, I want the dishes done. They didn't tell me what time to do it. They didn't say at 7:04, you're gonna make it, right? That's not how it worked. They just said, when I get home, it will be done. And coding the rover is actually very similar because again, it's smart enough to kind of figure out some of the steps. So we give it a set of to-dos and we can really only talk to the rover about twice a day, right? A little less than. So we send up a message and then it gets transmitted. It takes a long time to get there. It gets downloaded. It sends a message back and then we kind of rinse and repeat. 100% the cutest one, right? No one's gonna take that from her. That's the cutest one.
I love that he's sideways.
Yeah. I think this is like the most important part, really. Like, I know we didn't get to build the whole lesson, but that's not what I wanted to do today. I wanted you to just get familiar and have some kind of like tactile play time with the basics. And like all of you just coded, you know, a kind of a silly little program really fast. And again, if I gave you an hour, if I gave you a group, I think you guys could really make some neat things.
Thank you. We're ready to move to the next slide.
So I hope you enjoyed seeing our highlights from our some of our main events, as we say, from equity, special education, and STEM. And now we're going to take some time to go into breakout rooms, and we're going to put some questions in the chat. And using these guided questions, we want you to go to your breakout rooms and take some time to discuss and be ready to have a response to share out to the audience. So have someone record the discussion and have someone from your group be the speaker. So the breakout room reflection questions are: what did you hear from these presentations that excite you? What do you think the impact of this network would be for you and others interested in teaching? And how would coming to these TMN events help with exploring teaching? And as you see, Nicole has put them in the chat. And also we want to encourage you to sign up for our listserv with the TMN, with our network. So we'll put that link in the chat when you get back. So we want you to focus on your discussion and somebody take notes and be ready to share out. Are we ready to go to breakout rooms? I see people going. Great. If you're having trouble, just raise your hand or put a note in the chat. Let us know if you need some assistance getting into your breakout room. Jessica, it looks like you are assigned to room 8. Liliana, room 5. Maggie, you're assigned to room 3. Areli, you're assigned to room 1. Jessica, room 8, and Tracy, room 9. Can you give us a thumbs up or something, or let us know if you need help? One minute left. You want to get into those breakout rooms.
Is that form stack link active? When I click on it, it gives me an error.
I'm checking.
Good checking. Glad you guys got ahead of that. Ladies got ahead of that.
This one, I checked it and it's working.
It's just mine.
Did you click it from the slide or from our planning doc?
Clicked it from the deck.
Let me see if it goes on the planning doc.
Try it on the one in the chat.
I got it from the planning doc. It let me go in.
Okay.
Let me try this one.
There we go. Now it opens for me.
Did it go? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep,
All right.
that one worked too. Okay.
I am bringing everyone back.
Great.
Welcome back, everyone. I think everyone is here. Yep. Okay, so let's share. You can both write things into the chat, and also if you can unmute and share with us, what did you hear from the presentation that excites you? What do you think the impact of this network would be for you and others interested in teaching? Or how would coming to Teacher Mentor Network events help with the effort of exploring teaching? So you want to share into the chat, and we would love it if you want to unmute and share with us here out loud to the group.
I'll go. I was from group 4.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kayla, for those of you that don't know me. So in my group, I covered question 1 and we covered a little bit of question 3. But for what did you hear from the presentations that excite you? Something that I was excited about that I heard, I was actually driving at the time, but when the speakers went on and they were showing the videos of the speakers and the woman was talking about the co-teaching, I love the idea of co-teaching. I'm working as a kindergarten teacher at a private school right now. And only a couple months ago did I get a co-teacher. And I feel like it's made a significant difference in the behavior of my students. And I think it's really beneficial to have 2 different perspectives or 2 different learning styles in the classroom. And then for question 3, we talked about how would coming to TMN events help with exploring teaching. One of the things that's really awesome about TMN events is there's so many professional educators that have already been through it all. And so we like to join to just listen to your guys' perspective. I feel like Darnina and Renee and Yvonne, both Yvonnes, listening to you guys speak, you share so much knowledge, and it makes me feel like I'm growing as an individual as you speak. And so that's why I look forward to joining these. And that's why someone who is coming into teaching would benefit from joining these as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Kayla. And thank you to the group that you were in. We appreciate you. About some of the other groups, feel free to drop something into the chat, or if you have your spokesperson who wants to speak on your behalf, or anyone, feel free to unmute. Thank you, Kayla.
I was on group 2. We talked briefly about question number 1. I feel like one of the things that excited me, at least, it's the whole hands-on teaching method. Like you either demonstrate or work with the kids. I feel like that's a good idea because it excites the children to participate and be part of the lesson. Also for number 3, I feel I'm fairly new to joining events and stuff like this, and I feel like it just motivates me more. It excites me more, and I feel it's just a feeling that I'm having that I'm in the right path. It's for me, that's what it gives me.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. And that's what our hope is, particularly for the Teacher Mentor Network, is to both do the exploring, but also to have a place and a space where you can spend time with other people and express what you just did, Esmeralda. Like, that helps me to know I'm in the right place. And even if you feel like, oh, actually, I'm learning that I'm not in the right place, that's okay too, because that's what we do in community, is we really literally explore. So anyone else want to share what from their group? Thank you. I see some in the chat as well. I'm gonna back over here. There's a wealth of knowledge that's shared in the sessions. It's informative. It really helps to build community. Absolutely, that's a big part of the network. In coming together with all who take part, I've felt inspired by others who share values and come together and share the greater purpose. Thank you so much, Claudia. And Julie says, in group 7, thank you. That the TMN has really been interesting for me to find out about, because I'm still barely starting my teaching career path. Absolutely, we want people who are far down the path and just the start. And the workshops have been really eye-opening and very helpful with lots of information. Absolutely, thank you both. Anyone else want to unmute and share with us from your group? Both your thoughts or someone else's, something someone else shared. Are you all good? So we have our TMN listserv, and it's in the chat right now. If you want to click on that link so that you can sign up for our TMN events. That's that link there on the bottom of that slide. And I'll turn this over to my colleague, Nicole. If you feel like adding anything else, please do in the chat. Does anyone else want to say anything up to the group? Okay, Nicole.
All right, I'm back. So I know that was a lot of information, and like we mentioned, this entire presentation deck is going to be sent out to all of you so that you can really click through some of the links that we shared, click through the videos that were on the screen, and just really absorb all of the information. We definitely don't want anyone here leaving with like information overload, but we wanted to give you a true understanding of what our program does. Coming up in April, we have some amazing events. We already showed you the introduction video for the Coley book discussion series, so you are more than welcome to attend that. If you're one of our CPTP mentors and you show up, you will get a copy of her book. We have some great discussions on special education and the data that comes along with teaching that pathway, as well as another JPL event. So not only are our events open for our CPTP students and mentors, but truly anyone in the community who is interested in learning and exploring what the teaching profession entails. So we encourage you to sign up. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, we're going to have our contact information up in a couple of slides, if not the next one. And something that we want to note is we are growing our online presence, and we are going to be on social media. So feel free to follow us on the various outlets. And of course, if any of our events interest you, or you have any questions, or you have suggestions about events that you would like to see either this semester or in the fall, please reach out to us. We are open to suggestions and concerns, and we truly just want you to get to know our team. So I'm going to let the next few slides just play through. Again, our contact information is open and available to you guys. You're free to reach out to anyone on our team. And we truly just thank you guys for taking time out of your evening to learn more about our work and what our program does for the community. And with that, I'm going to stop talking, but I'm going to ask Yvonne to just play a little bit of music while everyone takes down the information.
Sorry about that. I'm going to make also a plug. We are constantly recruiting students and mentors in our program. So if you are interested and qualify, I did put the links to the application. So if you're not a current student or mentor teacher, we'd love for you to join us. And yes, as Nicole mentioned, there are social media links you can follow if you want to keep up to date with everything going on with CPTP, TMN. Please follow. We're super excited to be able to, if you're not part of the Cerritos, Rio Hondo, or El Camino, you still can be a part of this project by attending and being part of TMN. Yeah, other than that, thank you so much for being here today. We'll stick around and answer any questions you may have. But yes, I will continue to play some music as we all head out. Thank you all.